to the astrology interview, and look who I have with me. The wonderful, iconic, you truly are, Russell Grant. Now, Russell, you're 2 years older than me, so I have literally grown up with you.
We are cosmically related.
We're cosmically related. I mean, you're the only astrologer in the UK who really can be described as a household name. And, this has been, as I said, we're moving on in age, aren't we, Russell? We're sort of
Yeah,
we're,
75 this February, just gone. Yes, absolutely.
how did all this start for you?
Hobby. It was a hobby. I mean, I was touring and doing wonderful shows. You won't be able to see all of them, but there's all the posters up there. I mean, I trained at the Daphne Davy School. Isn't that just heavenly? She was a Sun Capricorn, was Daphne, and absolutely a wonderful teacher. So I went to drama school in Ruislip in Middlesex, and I was there, but we used to take all of our exams at Lambda. So we used to trot up to Talgarth Road in Hammersmith. And so, therefore, my whole background is theatre. And my
Mm.
mother and father, their background is movies. They met at Pinewood Studios. My mother was a secretary to all the very big names in both Britain and America. Dirk Bogarde, Stuart Granger, all of these wonderful people. And my father was a set designer. And he worked with Noel Coward on Blythe
Oh my
Spirit
gosh.
and Rex Harrison, that wonderful movie. So Mum and Dad were in the movie industry. My Uncle John, my mother's brother, he went on from Shepperton Studios to win an Oscar for The Deer Hunter. So my
Wow.
whole family
Yeah.
is dripping with everything that you would class as entertainment.
Right.
Background, foreground. Mum won many NODA medals for things. I mean, mum and dad were Sun in Libra, both born in 1927, 2 weeks apart, but never got on because they were both craving the limelight.
Yeah.
And so therefore it was difficult. They did part in the end, but it was for the best.
Yeah.
And my Uncle John was Sun Sagittarius, and he, as I say, he went on, and we ended up living in America. Sun Sagittarius, what do you think? And he had a wonderful time there. He ended up marrying his second wife, was the lady Hersha Parody, who played the school teacher in Little House on the Prairie.
Oh, for goodness sake.
So I've got American cousins and all the rest. So yes,
Yeah.
my whole business is show.
So, yes. So you trained as an actor.
I
So,
did,
so, so
but
how
I
did
used I used to be in the dressing room doing astrological charts
so tell me
because
about this. How did you get into astrology? Did it run parallel for a while?
don't know if it ran parallel really. No, I don't think it did. I mean, with Uranus on the midheaven, there
Mm,
is always these very sharp changes which you just aren't expecting. I don't think Uranus on the midheaven takes kindly to anything running in parallel with it.
no.
It is an all or nothing placement, and so your
Yeah.
career you just go for what I mean. I obviously have the Sun Moon opposition Pluto. That's quite obsessive and focused, but
Mm.
nonetheless, what happened was somebody bought me a book. I'm trying to think who, but anyway, I came across the Jeff Mayo book, Teach Yourself Astrology. And it came from Barnard and Warren in Uxbridge. I was born and raised in Middlesex. And I looked into it. And then I was given a book token by my grandmother, and I bought Julia and Derek Parker's The Complete Astrologer. So they were the two books that set me on the path. And then I joined, I must have been 15 or 16, probably around about then. I met up with a lovely woman quite by accident, Uranus on the midheaven, sat in a medium's waiting room in Waterloo in London. And
Right.
her name was Rita Szymanski. I say was Rita Szymanski because she changed it to Zia Szymanski. And
Right.
she at the time was, I think, the secretary to the Astrological Lodge. And that was Madame Blavatsky's joint down
Yes.
Gloucester Place. And I went there, and through that, I became very close to people like Liz Green, Martin Freeman, and Zia, as she is now, but Rita then, had this very strange sort of thing about me, that she wanted to teach me all she knew about astrology. And she carted me back. She kind of groomed me in a way. And I'm very grateful to her for that because she took me back to Jeremy Court in Clapham. I remember this. Number two, Jeremy Court, Clapham, and used to pick me up from the family home in Uxbridge and drive me to Clapham and teach me for 4 years everything she knew.
Wow.
And out of the blue, she suddenly said to me one day, "You've got to stick to this, Russell, because you're going to become one of the most famous astrologers in the world." And I said, "No, no, no, I'm an actor." And what happened was, oh, we've got the Coast Guard outside my house now.
Oh,
They're just, I can't believe. See, this is wonderful, isn't it? Uranus on the midheaven, the unexpected. We have the Coast Guard about to do a rescue outside.
where
My
do you live?
window is just there, the helicopter. How divine.
Where do you
Love
live?
it.
Where do you live?
Blackpool at the moment,
Oh,
but
okay.
that's all due to health and other reasons.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
anyway,
Anyway.
what happened was I used to do charts in the dressing room when I was doing shows. So I appeared at in the West End with Tommy Steele in Hans Christian Andersen. I was in Tom Brown's School Days with people like Chris Gard, Keith Chegwin, and the Duran Duran singer. And we all basically got on, but I was doing charts because Rita was teaching,
But
had
hang
pulled
on,
me
Russell,
along.
you must have been doing these by hand.
I was,
Yeah.
of course,
Oh,
and
yeah.
the most forbidding thing was those bloody logarithms at the back of the
Yes.
ephemeris.
Yeah, I
I
remember
hated it.
them.
I mean,
Yeah.
when I used to do interviews, I used to say to people, "You don't understand. It's an art and a science, and the science is doing the algebra." And doing the logarithms, and
Yeah.
all of it was done
Yeah.
by hand. But of course, where I absolutely loved, and it came to me quite naturally. I didn't really have to read any books. I'd look at a planet and see things about it. And
Wow.
I would, and this is what excited Liz Green, and excited everybody when I was doing um, uh, consultations, and that's when I then met another woman who became so important in my life. You'd know her as Pamela Crane, the Reverend
Yes.
Pamela
Yes.
Crane,
Yeah.
and she, with a friend of hers called Ken Fretwell, they took me under their wing, and I used to trot down by train to Deal in Kent, where they lived at the time. They don't. Pamela doesn't live. She and Gerard now live in North Wales. So I was doing astrological readings for members of the cast, and I used to do the chart, which was the hideous bit.
Mm.
But then once I got into the interpretation, so it was only ever a hobby. So when you ask me running in parallel, I think the big change came. In fact, I don't think, I know the big change came when I was asked to do a reading for the wonderful woman that she was, Her Majesty the Queen Mother. And that was
Oh,
done
hang on
in
a second.
public.
Russell, hold on, hold on. How did you get to be invited to do a reading for the Queen Mother?
Well, it was again very Uranian. Out of the blue, we will use that sentence a lot, or those three words, out of the blue, four words. And I told you I'm no good at maths. And what happened was the Daily Mail rang me up about the Ideal Home exhibition. This is in 1978. And they asked if they could meet me. And the reason being, I'd set up with some friends of mine the British Astrological and Psychic Society, because
Right.
I believe very strongly that you should have a great deal of intuition to be able to understand and read the chart. It can't just be done on the empirical evidence of what other people have seen. If you did everything by what other people have said, how will you ever progress? Because it's only by being able to look at something, and even when I've just started to work a lot on Instagram and TikTok and all these other places, and I never know what I'm going to say. I just
Hmm.
look at the chart and I'm off.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so intuition played a very big role. And what happened was the Daily Mail had seen the British Astrological Society, and I had just finished a series for Woman's Hour with the wonderful Sue McGregor. And I
Can I
was on
just,
there.
Russell, hold on. How did you get to do this? I mean, did people just were you? Oh, you were obviously building a reputation as an
They just rang
astrologer
me. I
out of the
didn't do
blue.
anything.
You
No, yeah,
didn't.
out of the blue.
You were minding your own business, doing
I was
readings for.
carrying on being an actor,
Oh, you were being an
and
actor.
I was being Fifth House, and I was being very
That's your
happy
sun and moon in the fifth house.
getting so much work through. I mean, the glorious tour of Ivor Novello's
Oh
King's
yes,
Rhapsody. I was in all of these old sitcoms, Fenn
yeah,
Street Gang, Doctor in the House, all of this stuff. I didn't want for work, but because was doing charts just as an aside, um,
right,
not professionally. It was
yeah,
simply a hobby, like you would read a book or whatever,
yeah.
play cricket. Anyway, they just rang me. And so this guy called me called Tim Hopewell Ash. I'm very good with, that Mercury and Capricorn of mine
Yeah.
really is good at remembering things. And today I have a sun trine my Mercury soon, so
Okay.
we couldn't have
Oh,
picked a
okie
better
doke.
time. And what happened was he said to me, "Can I meet you? Because we want to do a big feature at the Ideal Home Exhibition. It's our last year at Olympia. We're moving to Earl's Court. It's our last year at Olympia. Could I come and pick your brains?" I went, "Yes, absolutely." I was living in Shepherd's Bush then. And he came round, and lovely man with a beard, looked like George V actually. And his job was to lay out whenever the Queen had presents given to her, and she had to do a spread of all of her gifts for people to see. He was the person brought in to design all of the Queen's gifts so that people could view them and see them. So he was very artistic. Anyway, he basically came to me and said, "I've looked up the British Astrological and Psychic Society, and you've got a very young membership, which we had very young. I mean, I was only in my early 20s. A lovely lady called Christina Artemis, who's still practicing down in Bournemouth. And so there was three of them. There was a lovely nurse called Pat Kelmsley, Olivia Forster, who is now in Cyprus. All of these, we all came together to work on astrology as an intuitive thing. And so he said, I just wondered how you would go about doing a feature because I'd like to do a feature. So we discussed everything. And then he suddenly turned to me and said, "I didn't come," he said, "to ask you. he said, to be actually involved. But now I've met you, here we go, out of the blue, still 4 words. He said, I want you to front it. And I said, really? He said, what do you want me to do? He said, I'd like you to be there every day. And he said, and I would like you to speak to the public and I would like you to front it. And we will do lots of publicity with you for in the Daily Mail and the Evening News, which was going then, not anymore. Anyway, the Queen Mother was opening this last thing. And now here's some Uranian stuff. So I hear from Janice Nash, who is the head of PR. She's Canadian, and she rang me up and said, "Well, the Queen Mother would love to meet you." I said, "I don't think she's asked personally." She went, "She's into astrology." I said, "Is she?" I said, "I'm so surprised." But just before we're due to meet her, it was called off. Just all of a sudden, called off. And Janice came to me and said, it's been called off. I said, why? They said, well, they don't think it would be the right thing for the Queen Mother to be seen with an astrologer. So I said, oh, okay, fine.
Mm.
Next thing, I get another call seconds later, minutes, whenever it was. It was almost on top of she's not coming to. She is coming, and she's just round the corner by the Cornish pasty stand. And at that point, I rushed to get changed again, and I never forget this. My zip went in my trousers. And there's a lovely member of ours, she was our membership secretary of BAPS at the time, called Anne Halfhide, came from South Norwood. And she basically had to fiddle with my flies with a safety pin. This is absolutely true. There is no, absolutely, on my own life. And so there we are, and the Queen. And then I've got an aide de camp coming to me and saying, do not touch the Queen Mother on that side. So it would have been, well, whatever, on that side. I said, okay, well, I won't touch her at all. She'll only be with you for 3 minutes. Well, actually, she turned up with David English, who was editor at the time, Viscount Rothermere, owner, Bubbles Harmsworth, who was hilarious, who was his wife, Lady Rothermere, but of course a rank starlet in her day, and the Queen Mother and a few other people with her. Well, she stayed for over 30 minutes. We walked past all of these presentation boards, and there was one about birthstones, and she was particularly interested in the pearl because the pearl, being very much wedded to Scotland, the Queen Mother,
Mm.
she said that's very interesting about the pearl, and she taught me something because they put all these birthstones up and everything, which the Daily Mail wanted for colour and glitz, and so there were different boards that people could read and have their natal chart done. And the Queen Mother said the interesting thing about the pearl, they say that the pearl is for tears. She said, but they forget it's also tears of joy as well as
Mm.
tears of sorrow. And she told me that. There's a lovely picture then of me with the Queen Mum where she is absolutely grinning. The chart was put together at the last minute by, it wasn't done by me, it was done by Chris Craswell. We had teams of astrologers doing charts because there were no computers. And Chris Craswell did a lovely chart for her, which we could present to her because we didn't know if
Yeah.
we were doing it. Anyway, we presented it to her. And then after that, which I don't really, but in fact I don't talk about. I met her a couple of other times since. Um, um, but the impact of me meeting her, the photos went all around the world. I remember one
Wow.
of the first things I got through was from the Halifax Courier, which was our Halifax in Yorkshire. But then another cutting came through from Halifax in Canada. So all of these
Wow.
papers are carried in Brazil. I ended up working for Globo Television for a while, all through the Queen Mother. So there were like these
Yeah.
headlines of Astrologer Royal. One had, I think the
Yeah.
Evening News had by royal appointment, all
Mm,
of which was daft. I mean, I wasn't there by royal appointment. But of course, what I did find interesting, having read a lot about John Dee and Elizabeth the
yeah.
First, what I did note was that I was the first person, or the first astrologer, who publicly
Mm,
was connected to a member of the royal family. So there was the Queen Mother, there was Princess Margaret that followed, and a few others from that time, and that was all from the Queen Mother. And it was at that moment in 1978, March the 10th was the date, that moment when my life changed dramatically. I
mm.
got a call from Granada Television, a man called Stephen Leahy, who was the big games producer, who said to me, I wonder if you'd come on to Granada TV. And I thought he was ringing up and going to send me a script. But he didn't. He said, when I asked, is there a script coming? He said, you are the astrologer, aren't you? And I went, well, yes, I suppose I am, because it hadn't occurred to me that's what I was professionally,
And he
because
was
it
ringing
all
you for
changed
that.
on a sixpence.
Just so you
And
changed from
and so
actor to astrologer, and that's what happened for you.
that's what it was, just like that. He
Wow.
made that call, and there's
So
a
you were
program
innocent.
called Live from Two in Manchester, and he said, I wonder if you will become our resident astrologer. In 1978-79, this happened. And that was at that point, I then thought, oh, I'm an astrologer. And then what happened to crystallize everything? Papers were ringing me up saying, would you do a column for us? Would you do a column for us? And so there was that dramatic
Mhm.
point. That's why it never ran parallel. It
Yeah, I
was
get it.
one or the other.
Yeah.
And it was all really through the Queen Mother. So my very first book, Your Sun Signs, which was published by Virgin, they signed me up when I ended up on breakfast television. I dedicated to the Queen Mother and sent her a
Oh.
copy. So
So,
that's what
so
happened.
Russell, did you actually sit with her and do her chart?
We had conversation.
You had conversations. Fair enough. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Client confidentiality.
Client confidentiality, but she played a huge role in your life. And
Oh,
also,
she changed my life.
she changed your, isn't that extraordinary? Who'd have
Yeah,
thought
she
that?
changed my life.
Yeah.
And I am, I mean, she's a super duper Leo, son Leo. I mean, she was all that.
Mm.
And we just hit it off. We hit it off.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why. In fact, the PR lady, Janice, came back after and said she absolutely fell in love with you, which is why she spent so much time, because she would normally pass the stalls, go in, oh, yes,
Yeah. Yeah.
lovely, thank
Yeah.
you very much.
Yeah.
But
So, Russell, just looking at your chart, you've got Pluto in Leo. Was her sun conjunct your Pluto?
she's August the 4th.
Oh, she,
Ironically, the same date, not the same year, as Meghan Markle.
huh. So she's not, yeah, so it wasn't quite, the sun wasn't quite, well, it was,
No, I think you'll find it was nearer in opposition to my sun or moon.
yeah, absolutely. Certainly to your moon. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah,
So I felt a very strong, the vibe I felt, and I will never forget it. Why would you? Because she was in a lovely velvet outfit, and I felt I was meeting up with my grandmother. It was that kind of vibe,
really.
and that's where the
Yeah,
moon comes in. It
yeah,
was as though we talked to each other, and you're not allowed to actually do the
yeah.
talking first. They actually said she must address you,
Mm,
and you must call her mum.
mm,
Certainly the first time, mum. But by the time we were walking round, the Stars in Your Life was the name of the feature.
yeah.
By the time we were walking around, it was sort of chitty chatty, like you and me here. except you couldn't be my grandmother because you're far too young.
Well, I'm a couple of years younger.
Yeah, far too young.
Far too young. God, how fascinating. So that's all, and you put all that down to Uranus conjunct your MC.
Well, because you see,
Isn't it
everything
interesting?
that's ever happened to me, career-wise, I've just not been expecting it.
Yeah,
And it, I mean, some of the craziest things, like um, in the early 1990s, I received a call from New York, and completely out of the blue,
yeah,
and there's a chap called JB. He called himself. He had an unpronounceable German name, and they used to call him JB. And he said to me, "I would love you to come and join our new breakfast television um, outfit." He said in New York. He said we're launching for Fox Television. Ironically, breakfast time, the BBC name as it was too.
yeah.
That came out of the blue. I ended up on the QE2 sailing off to New York to meet all the producers of Fox. And the show became an FX production, FX television. And I
Yeah.
flew back Concorde. All of that was completely out of
Wow.
the blue.
Wow.
That was November the 25th that happened. In 19, I'm pretty sure it was 1992. Even breakfast television, I was fought over because there was TVAM and there was BBC Breakfast Time. And they both wanted me because I was working for TV Times at the time. And in the end, I went to BBC Breakfast Time because TVAM then decided to become terribly serious. So again, out of the blue, I ended up with the BBC, and Anthony Pegham of the TV Times editor, he wasn't happy that I was joining the BBC because, of course, TV Times and Radio Times were monopolies.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so,
yeah.
therefore, to work for BBC Breakfast Time, but be the TV Times astrologer. Then there was another wonderful woman called Glenys Roberts who wrote for all the broadsheets. It was she who introduced me to Tina Baker when my very first column in this country was for Tatler, when
Right.
Tina Baker was
Yes, yes.
the editor.
Mm.
So basically, yeah, 'cause she married. I'm just trying to think. She married Harold Evans, didn't she?
I think
Tina, Tina Brown. Why am I
Tina
calling Tina
Brown. I was going
Baker?
to say
Tina
Baker.
Baker was
Oh, absolutely,
working for
Tina
children's
Brown.
television.
Yeah,
Then she had a
yeah,
thing called Tina's Tray.
yeah.
Tina's Tray. Isn't that funny? That's come into my mind now because I did a couple of programs with Tina's Tray. It was Tina Brown who
So,
was
so,
editor of Tatler.
so, Russell, I think it's your ability to be an entertainer is very strong, and obviously, you astrology was the cup that you passed over with it then.
Yeah,
So, I mean, it's
absolutely.
extraordinary, isn't it, that you happen to know astrology that well and take to it that well, but use your entertainer. So, talk a little bit about your chart then, and how that, because I've got it here. I'm not going to share it, but you've got your moon and your sun conjunct in the fifth house opposite Pluto. That's
Yes.
a very strong
The
well,
Sun
especially
Pluto is very, very powerful.
yeah.
I'm very glad, however, that Neptune butts in with a trine,
But
because
Neptune's in your first house, which gives you
and
that
yeah,
charisma.
well, and that trine you see from the Sun to Neptune. In
Yeah.
fact, you've got a Sun opposition Pluto, but you've got a Sun trine
Yes.
Neptune, and in
Yes.
a kind of way, that Neptune takes off the harshness of Pluto, because Pluto is so unforgiving that in many ways it for me, if you have a very powerful Pluto aspect, it
Yeah.
can become so difficult to cope
Yeah.
with at times because you become transfixed fixed. You become obsessed.
Professional.
You can't in any way
Yeah.
shake things off. Whereas this, and I know there's that side of me, and it's good in a way because it means I will keep doing something
Mm.
until I feel I've got it right. But the problem is with a strong Pluto aspect, you never feel you've got it right. But with the Sun trine Neptune
Yes,
in my
Neptune.
chart,
Yes.
it allows me to forgive myself. It
Oh,
allows me to
yes.
say, okay, Russ, you've gone about as far as you can go. Now give up on that.
Yes.
And so, therefore, that sun trine is very, very forgiving. The sun opposition, sorry, Pluto opposition moon, that's quite wide. It's 10
Yeah.
degrees to
Yes.
18.
Yeah.
But all my life, I've had very difficult situations with some women. And what I mean by that is they are so completely and utterly crazed themselves with their own emotional problems. They come to me and think that I can sort things out for them. And
Right.
so, therefore, I have had a lot of problems with clingy women. And
Mm.
clingy women who basically won't let you go simply because for some reason they think you are the answer to their prayers.
So you get a lot of projections.
Well, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I mean, I remember I did talk about Talgarth Road. This is a very strange thing, this is all part of this Uranian stuff going on. But I used to go up there for Lambda. But for a number of workshops, I went to the same place, Talgarth Road, and I did a number of workshops on transpersonal psychology with, do you remember Dr. Ian Gordon Brown? Do you
Yes.
and Barbara Summers? We
Yes.
did a lot of, and
Yes.
my alter egos are Mother Earth, wouldn't you just know, and Puck. And it was so interesting. And when I went through all this transpersonal stuff, one of the things that I was completely attracted to, and I absolutely love it, and it kind of, in a way, defines my astrology and the way I deal with astrology, is Jack Offenbach's wonderful Orpheus in the Underworld, where all the gods and goddesses take on characters. Now, funnily enough, out of the blue, Sue, last week, due to my stuff on Instagram and TikTok, which I've not really been on for that long, really, because I wanted to experiment with it. But an American publisher has called my agent and said, we'd love Russell to produce a book. What would you like to do? And I've come up with the idea of the 10 best friends you never knew you had. So that each of the planets
Mm.
are as you would see them mythologically.
Yeah,
So
lovely.
that Venus can come and you can talk to Venus in your chart and say, Venus, I'm having awful trouble with my relationship. What should I do? And Venus will
Yeah.
answer you back. So, and you go through all of the planets in that way. So they become the 10 best friends. So I've always seen the planets as people I'm talking to
Yes.
and I chat to. So, for instance, I'm going to record today um, the new moon in Taurus, and I'm already from this morning chatting
Mm.
about the new moon Taurus to myself, having
Mm.
a chat with it, so
Yeah.
that when I come to record it, I would have had a discussion with my
This this
friends.
is very hermetic. As above, so below, as above.
That wonderful man. Yeah.
Yes, I assume you're talking about Hermes Trismegistus.
Yes,
Um,
absolutely.
yeah.
I,
Okay,
I
Russell, can I just ask you? I just
and
want to go
Alan
further.
Oaken.
Oh, Alan Oaken, absolutely.
Mm.
Yes, I just want to ask you also about your Sun, your Venus conjunct, a very conjunct your Mars, and also Jupiter. All in
Yes.
Pisces, and then you've got your North Node in Pisces. Just do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yes. Well,
The
of course,
impact
they're all
that's had.
connected to our dear friend Uranus. Again,
Yeah,
Uranus, if Neptune butts
everything
in,
goes up there. Yeah,
it's all up there. That
yeah,
Uranus conjunct my midheaven.
yeah.
And that a whole Cancerian bit and Pisces bit is my Mother Earth bit. Whereas but the rest you can put down to, I mean, certainly with Saturn rising and in the 12th house.
Yes.
So that's my puckish bit.
Mm,
It's the side of me that people tend to see, but they don't know about the other side. These two different characters that come out through transpersonal psychology. That conjunction
mm,
of the stellium of
mm,
the three Pisces planets are a godsend. They're very, very good to me, and I treat them well. I give
mm,
them what they want, and what they want is this showbiz side. And because Uranus is involved, to really get the best out of it, even though that Saturn rising makes me a technophobe, and I've got a white trine to Mercury in Capricorn, so there's this
yeah.
good connection between those two as well.
Yes.
It gives me that commitment to something.
Yeah.
Now, with Uranus coming in, that's why I knew I had a very big health scare. I had a pituitary brain tumor, and out of the blue. And of course, Uranus rules that part of the body, the pituitary gland. And I came through. And in fact, my powers of recovery, here's Mars Jupiter conjunct. My powers of recovery, the surgeon said to me, because it only happened a couple of years ago, I was 73 when it happened. And the surgeon said to me, "You have got the powers of recovery of a teenager,"
Wow.
because I came straight out of it. But what it's done is because of the current transits of Saturn and Neptune opposing my natal Saturn and ascendant, I'm having to have tests because of how
Mm,
it's left me. So
right.
I am combating that side, but because of Venus, Mars, and Jupiter, I will come through, and I
Yeah.
know I'll come through. So,
Russell, can
in
I?
other words, it gives me profound luck and opportunity.
Yes. Well, and I use Equal House, so and it's in the sixth
I
house.
use Equal House too.
Yeah. Oh, cool. Just tell me, talk a little bit more about the Venus Mars conjunction, how that plays out in your life, because it's such a strong combination
It is a strong
of the
combination.
masculine and the feminine.
It is. And I mean, obviously, I mean, it's no surprise I'm gay. Although, of course, when I first became well known, people just thought I was showbiz. The amount of people who used to think I was just showbiz and didn't think I was gay was hilarious, really. I mean, with Uranus stuck up there in the midheaven, what the heck did you think I was? But basically, that Venus and Mars. It gives me, in many ways, I I'm able to express my femininity through color
Mm,
and beauty because Venus is my ruler with Libra
yeah,
rising.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
for instance, I created again intuitively, and there was no reason why I did it except it was a natural thing. I started to buy glasses to match the colors of my jumpers. And so therefore I would have this coordination of color and richness of color. Color's so important. In fact, my last book, and one of my favorite books, but came out during COVID. Oy vey. I mean, basically came out during COVID, but The Art of Astrology is one of my most favorite books. It was all about color, and I had a
Mm,
psychological guide to color in it. And I loved it. So it comes out through that expression and being able to put out there the Mars energy to put out there
yeah.
the of what I'm feeling and the expression and color. And there is absolutely no doubt when I was signed up to Strictly Come Dancing, there was a
Was
bit
that
of
out of the blue as well?
oh,
Was that
totally,
really?
totally out. Well, that was outrageously mad. I'm just sat at home. I was living in Snowdonia at the time because I love mountains, Saturn rising. I love mountains. And I basically was just sat sitting, as Hilda Baker would say. I was sat sitting, and I got a call from a lady called Daisy Moore, the casting director, and she said to me, have you ever thought, have you ever trained as a dancer? I said, no, an actor, but not a dancer. She said, the producer of Strictly Come Dancing would love to meet you, and her name is Moira Ross. Can you come to Manchester? Well, a trip from Snowdonia to Manchester is 3.5 hours. And I thought, should I? And I thought, well, why not? So I went to see Moira Ross, and her birthday is October the 5th, and I'm February the 5th. We got on like a house on fire. And when she first signed me up, I was signed up in the June. Of course, you can't tell anybody.
Mm.
In fact, one of my very close friendships began on the day I was signed. It was with Robbie Savage, the footballer, another Libra son. And we got on like a house on fire. And I got on with Maura Ross like a house on fire. This is all very Martian, isn't it? Lots of fire going on here, but
Yeah.
it was steam heat that was happening. And basically, Moira said to me, if you were having to choose one of our pros, who would you want to dance with? I said, either a Pisces who was connected to my Piscean planets or a Libran. Well, there were two there that I knew. There was Ola Jordan, who was Libra, and there's Flavia Cacacia, who was Pisces, is Pisces. And they wouldn't say anything more to me. That's all she asked me, if you had a choice. Well, when the evening came where they partner you,
Oh,
they
yes.
partnered me with Flavia, and I didn't know. Well, once I did Flavia's chart before we started to work together, her Venus is on my sun, and her sun is on my Mars Jupiter. So
Perfect.
it was perfect. And
Perfect.
everybody was saying, oh, he'll be out the first week. He's too
Yeah.
fat. He won't be able to get around. Well, of course, I lasted to being shot out of a cannon in Wembley. And Flavia and I talk to each other every week. Still,
Oh,
we are still
still.
connected. We did so much together, but I tell you the magic of that. That's why when anyone says to me about Strictly, how how did you get on so well? And I said, well, you can't judge that till you work so intimately with a person
Yeah.
because you are talking 24/7 for six
Yeah.
months.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I said, automatically, I would come up with the ideas when we were given the music, and Flavia would come up with all the dance and the choreography. And from the very word go, she knew that if I couldn't do the steps, I was 60 years old. If I couldn't do technically the steps, she knew I could present them and perform.
Yeah.
And so
Yes.
she would
Yeah.
create choreography of performance, whereas I would say, like when we did our Paso Doble, I said, why don't we do March of the Toreadors, but why don't we do it really stupidly? I said, because I never forget the Italian Job when Benny Hill played that man who was obsessed by fat women, and he was a chubby chaser, and he had those sort of Joe Gladwin glasses that were like the bottom. So I played this character, this Paso Doble, transforming myself from a Benny Hill in the Italian Job to this Paso Doble Toreador or Matador or whatever door. Anyway, and she just got it the whole time. So and we worked
Russell,
together.
Russell, Russell, why did you end? Why were you shot out of the cannon?
Moira Ross came to me at the beginning of November, and she said to me, "I've got this idea, Russell. I'd like to shoot you out of a cannon." I said, "That sounds fab." I said, "But when are you going to do it?" I said, "Because I've got a Paso Doble." In fact, strangely enough, you should ask that question. It was the same day as we hadn't even got through the Paso Doble. So we were doing our Paso, and she said, "Well," she said, "we are going to Wembley." She said, "I think it was funny enough around the 25th of November again, Uncle's birthday and all the rest of it." And when I had my operation on a new moon in Sagittarius on the 24th of November. Anyway, she said, I said, "Let me get through this." And then I had another week to do. And then and then it was going to be Wembley. And we got through. And she just did it. And in fact, I remember going to rehearsals in the Wembley Arena, 6,000 people, and I was going to be shot out of a cannon. And I never forget going into that cannon when there were no cameras on, they were setting the scene, and I got a standing ovation just because they got me into the cannon. I hadn't even been shot out. It made me laugh so much. Even in rehearsals, I just kept wanting to rehearse. I got shot out about 6 times in
So
rehearsal.
what's it like being shot out of a cannon? Is
Well,
it an
I mean,
explosion or what
I
happens?
ended up on this very small tea tray. Back to Tina's tray. I was on this very small tray. That it's madness, really. Um, it was just being up in the air and just looking down at 6,000 people, and you are up there on wires being shot
Oh,
out, and
oh,
then
you're
you
on
have to land.
wires.
It's bad.
Right.
It's bad enough that the fact you're shot up because you're on wires, you then have to land and go into a jive. And my hat came off, my helmet came off and rolled towards the stagehand. And if you look on YouTube, you can just see the stagehand grabbing hold of my helmet. And of course, I have to then be detached from the
Yes.
wires.
Yes.
It was wonderful. And at the end of
Is
it
that one
all,
of the kind of highlights of your life, being shot out of a
yeah,
cannon?
in fact, it became, I think it became nominated for a magic moment of a BAFTA.
Oh,
So
really? Right.
it was
Right.
beaten by I ask you, it's beaten by William and Kate's wedding. I mean,
Oh,
royal weddings, ten a penny.
yeah.
Me being shot out
Yeah.
of a
Once,
cannon
once only.
once only. And so, but it's
But six
still the
times for
most
you.
sought after clip from the BBC to this day from people who want
So
to.
just to go back into, do you feel it, because you're on wires, so you're all wired up, but is
Yeah.
there a kind of, is there something that
Are you
propels you out?
propelled? Yes, absolutely
What is
you
it?
are.
Is it gas?
Well,
Is it,
no, it's because you're on these wires. What happens is because you've got to go whoosh out. Have
yeah,
a look on YouTube, you'll
yeah,
see. You're stuffed into this cannon.
yeah.
So all you've got is my head and my little hands like this and Flavia dancing in front of me, lighting the fuse. So Flavia does a little bit of a jive and lights the
Yeah,
fuse, and out
yeah.
I pop.
Right.
There is a force, this sort of big gravity thing
Yeah.
happening, where the crane that's doing it, which is a
Oh, I
fearful beast on
see.
the, which you
Yeah.
can't see, it just whoosh. I
Wishes you
mean,
out.
it's like it. I mean, if you did have a fire, behind you on your backside, you would not probably go any quicker than the crane. It was
Wow.
fast, and it's a whoosh.
It's
And
a
a
whoosh.
great piece of music, Reach for the
Yeah.
Star.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
and it was just fantastic. But the funny thing is, I had this kind of premonition before the show, and I said to Flavia, I can't go on and do next week. Now, the following week, there's what they call a jive, 7 minutes of jive. My knee had gone on
Ah,
the third week, and
mm,
my I had I had what they call a flying meniscus, and my knee had gone. But I managed to dance. Here's your Mars Jupiter again. I managed to dance through 6 weeks
wow.
with a what would you call it? It's like,
Pain, I guess.
well, pain,
Yeah.
but I had to have the whole knee strengthened. And Flavia knew a man who made braces for skiers in Guildford. And she called the man up and he came and fitted me with this brace. So I had to dance with a brace that stretched
Mm,
from my ankle to my hip.
mm,
And if you, I mean, if you want to know what Saturn is like, you've got Venus, Mars, Jupiter jumping for joy, but you've got a brace. And so
yeah.
there is Saturn in my
There's
12th house, a
Saturn. Yeah.
Pisces house, the 12th house
Hidden.
saying,
Hidden
you're
between
not going to
underneath it.
have as much fun as you wanted. And
Yeah. And the brace is
I did.
hidden
It's
underneath your
hidden
costume.
under all of my costumes.
Now, Russell, I'm just going to change tack a little bit because I know that one of your idols is Ivor Novello. And
Yes.
I heard you on Great Lives with with Matthew Parrish talking
Yes.
about
Yes.
Ivor Novello. So just tell us a little bit about why you think he's such a cool cat.
My mother is absolutely convinced that the reason I came out wanting to be an actor and loving music was because she sat at the Palace Theatre in London when Ivor Novello was doing King's Rhapsody in 1950. And she's quite convinced I heard the music inside her. And when I was born, I was actually 20 days earlier than I should have been. I should have been born on the 25th of February, and I was born on the 20th of the
Oh,
5th.
so you should have been a
But I
Pisces.
was what they call when they have to drag you out. Still got the marks here.
Right.
Um, a forceps baby.
Yeah.
So they dragged me
Yeah.
out on the 5th of February. But it didn't matter because I've got so much Pisces in my chart. Who needs more?
No.
There's enough already. And so what happened was in 1972, I received a call out of the blue, of course, saying we'd like you to tour in King's Rhapsody by Ivor Novello. And I said to my mum, I said, oh, I've been asked to, they've just given me the job. I didn't have to audition. And she went, oh, that's it. And that's how I heard the story. I sat in the
Oh,
Palace Theatre in 1950 and watched Ivor Novello in King's Rhapsody, and that's why you're doing it, and that's why you are. And she's probably right.
gosh, how
Um,
extraordinary.
and basically, I mean, Ivor Novello died on the 6th of March,
Mm,
1951. I was born on the 5th of February,
mm,
1951. And I'd always felt that, to begin with, it's the happiest tour I've ever done. It's the most beautiful music, and
mm.
I had the most wonderful time. But I've always felt he's been underrated in his own country. And one of the things that really, really, and still annoys me, when you have the Novello Awards, which they call the Ivors, there
Yeah.
is nobody there telling anybody in that audience why it's the Novello Awards and why they're called Ivors. And I heard a pop star whose whose name will be nameless because just to mention it makes me very angry. Got an Ivor Novello Award, and when she was interviewed, she ended it saying, "Oh, by the way, who is this Ivor anyhow?" And I just thought that's outrageous. So I contacted the people at the Ivor Novello Award, the press office. Oh yes, that's a good. I said, why don't I come and just do a few words on it? Never heard from them again. Well, we'll call you next year. And I just think it's outrageous that
Mm, he
this
was so
great
talented.
man, I mean, he was I mean, you heard the program, so, and it's still
Mm,
on BBC Sounds and iPlayer.
mm.
But I mean, considering this man was the greatest grossing movie star we had in
Yeah.
this country in the
Ever.
1920s.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, unbelievable. And not only that,
He was a
uh,
silent actor, though, wasn't he,
he
mainly?
was a silent
Yeah.
actor and he never sang. That's why when you watch,
Yeah.
that's why when you watch any of the stuff that he's in, you don't. He's at the piano, but he never
Not
sings.
sings.
And
Do you think he could sing?
no,
No,
no, I
no. He
don't.
didn't
He
have the
had an
voice,
ear
but he
for
had,
music. His
yeah.
mother, Clara, was of course the singer in the family.
Mm.
But you see, when I worked for for Andrew Lloyd Webber. My God, I wish I could have worked for Ivor Novello. But when I spoke to Andrew Lloyd Webber when I did The Wizard of Oz, when I came out of Strictly, I found out that most of his grand overtures, the person who inspired him was Ivor Novello.
Inspired Andrew Lloyd
Andrew
Webber.
Lloyd Webber's
Whoa.
overtures, his overtures, the bigness. And of course,
Yes.
Andrew Lloyd Webber now owns the Theatre Royal Drury Lane.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't for Ivan Novello, there would be
Yeah.
no
Oh, how extraordinary.
Theatre Royal Drury Lane because it's his big shows like Glamorous Night
Yes.
that made the money to keep the theatre
Yeah.
going.
How
So
incredible.
I sense that it's a sense, I just feel there's a great
Something.
injustice.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if you look at his chart, his sun is very close to my Mercury. So that's why I end up spouting about him and talking about him, you know.
Russell, just to end today, I've just loved listening to you. I mean, you are a hoot, that is for sure. No wonder you're.
That's my Mars Jupiter, I think you've just
I
cashed
know.
in on.
Oh, I love it. No wonder you're regarded as a national treasure. Too right. That's all I can say. I just want to see whether you're willing to give us a little insight into how you think astrologically the world is going today.
It's a difficult one, isn't it? I mean,
Mm.
you've got to look at those very big planets. I mean, go back to, I think it was January or February, and I saw that eclipse coming on March the 3rd. And the one thing that I thought was, poor old Starmer, this is not going to work out for him.
Yeah.
Simply because that eclipse is too powerful with that sun in Virgo of his. And then you've got all that stuff
Yeah.
going on with Trump, Sun Gemini.
Yeah.
And of course he goes
Very
to
strange
China, and who
one.
does he have a bromance with? A man who is either the day before or the day after him, Sun Gemini, Xi Jinping. So there's this Gemini stuff going
Yeah.
on, and Uranus has entered Gemini. Whatever Starmer decides that what he wants to do, it ain't gonna happen
Mm,
because
mm.
Uranus is moving ever closer to a square to his sun in Gemini. I know it's a long way off, but the energy is there. It's
Yeah.
approaching, it's applying. And
Yeah.
so if you add that to that eclipse opposing his sun, that's why I said to the people who follow me on Twitter, I actually put it, and I remember now. I actually said, watch out the next 6 months, because I believe, you see, that one eclipse lasts to the next eclipse. A lot of people just give it a timeline, but I believe it's like when you look at my Instagrams, I believe one full moon lasts to the next full moon. One new moon lasts to the next new moon. It's a new phase,
Yeah.
it's a
Yeah.
new
Yeah.
energy. It's
Yeah.
what I believe, and
Mm.
it's how I interpret. And if
Mm.
people want my style of interpretation, then that's what they get. They get my
Yeah.
style.
Yeah.
And because astrology is this combination of Saturn and Uranus, these two Aquarian planets, it is very important that you are individual in the way that you approach astrology. That's why I am very, very fearful of following what the books say. We're back, we're full circle now, Sue, to
We
the
are.
beginning of this conversation.
Yeah.
It is so important that you give out what you sense and feel. It may not be in a book, it doesn't have to be in a book. I know that some astrologers think that astrology is prediction. Well, I don't think it's prediction.
Mm.
I think it is um, I think it is embracing what can happen, but you have got the choice. I've always said that if I say to you, you've got this particular aspect happening, I suggest you do this. You have the final choice. Russell suggests I do this, but I don't want to do it. So don't do it.
Don't
You
exactly.
know,
Exactly.
but
Yeah.
I always
Yeah.
believe that to predict, this is only my style. I
Mm.
believe to predict, you are ordaining it. You are
Mm.
saying it is going to. I predict this.
Mm.
And I think it's difficult, therefore, for some people to understand that, what is destiny? What is your destiny? I mean, I am a committed Christian. Luckily enough, people understand that about me. I've got a huge faith. Well, wouldn't you expect that
Well,
from a
that's a lot of
baptized?
Pisces and a North Node Pisces. Yeah.
Exactly. And it's a very important part of my life. But our destiny, you could argue, is it in the hands of a God or is it in the hands of ourselves? Well, my feeling is if the God has given us a brain and a mind of our own, use it.
I
Use
love
it.
that. Can I ask you one last question?
Carry on, Sue.
How do you see the royal family turning out now?
Well, I've never been a huge fan of Charles. And do you know what turned me off with Charles? I mean, apart from the fact that um, I think the problem is his mother said to him, "Make Camilla Queen Consort, but not the Queen." But we all hear now Queen Camilla, Queen Camilla. I don't know Camilla. I don't know Charles. I've not met either of them. But there is just something to me that I think if we could have skipped a generation and gone straight to Diana's child and gone straight to William, and the greatest sadness when I did the Royal Variety Show in 1984 and I met Diana. And Diana's first words to me as she came along the line was, "Oh, Russell, I'm so glad to have met you. When I was having Harry, you used to brighten up my mornings." Because, of course, I was doing breakfast telly at that time and doing basically what I'm doing now on Instagram and TikTok, blah, blah, is what I used to do on television. Straight to camera stuff. And I loved that woman. I loved Diana so much. July the 1st, what do you expect? I mean, all that stuff drive my Pisces on my Uranus. I mean,
Yeah.
um, I just loved her. And I just feel that if we could have skipped that Charles and Camilla bit and gone straight to William, to me, that would have given us more longevity.
Mm.
But what do I know? I don't know. From the days of the Queen Mother and Margaret and Her Majesty the Queen, all of those, it felt we felt that security. We need to understand if we look at the chart of the United Kingdom. My lovely friend Nick Campion, who I've known many, many years, I used to, at the very beginning of his astrological days, I used to teach him. And then he's gone on to great things,
Yeah,
only
he
for
has.
for a couple of years. But Nick Campion is one of those people I'm talking about. He does it his way, and he's great. And we have a composite chart of 0 degrees Aries.
Oh, okay.
About exactly.
Yeah.
So I feel that. we've got, if you ask about the royal family, you also have to ask about the United Kingdom because the two are interconnected. And as we've had Uranus going over that UK chart of May, the Sun in Taurus, some people make it Capricorn, but we've got Pluto in Aquarius. And
Mm,
it's going to square that stuff in Taurus.
mm,
And so, therefore, what is happening? Charles is the end of the line of as we know it. So, what am I saying? I'm doing this all on the hoof here, Sue, but this is how I work. Um, what I'm saying is when Charles goes and Camilla goes, then you will see something
yeah,
completely different happen
yeah,
because it's going to happen. Because what will happen in 7 years' time, Uranus will be crossing William's sun.
interesting.
You know, whether he'll last that long, Charles, who knows? He's
Yeah,
great
no,
sadness that he has got the illness. I
yeah,
think it's probably being Sun in Scorpio. It's going to be prostate cancer. They're not saying what it is, but
no,
I'd be very surprised if it's not
yeah,
something like prostate cancer for a man.
yeah, yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Well, all we can do is, just open ourselves up and, as you say, witness everything moving past and
Yeah. I think the th
celebrating what the
well, I think
celestial forces are bringing us.
well, exactly, and I think the thing is, be yourself. Be your own self.
Mm.
Read the books, get the grounding. Here's Saturn rising talking. Once you've got the grounding, fly your kite, shoot out of your own cannon in life. And
There speaks a really old-fashioned Aquarian.
Saturn and Uranus.
Yeah,
Saturn rising, Uranus on the
yeah,
midheaven.
yeah.
And it's not done me too much harm.
It,
Controversial? Lovely.
on that note, I'm going to say thank you so much, Russell. I've loved speaking with you or listening to you, I should say.
I know I go on, don't I? I'm
Well,
sorry. It's yet
that's not a
because you've
problem.
enthused me. It's true.
Oh, all right. Well, I'm going to say thank you. And to everyone watching, please, if you've enjoyed this, make a like and leave us a comment. Russell and I would love to hear from you. So for now, I'm going to say goodbye and thanks again, Russell. Bye
Well,
for
my
now.
pleasure, and thank you to everybody watching.
Bye for now.